When death takes me down and I breathe here no more, the anthem will sound on that eternal shore. I'll join with the angels in heaven on high, singing praise the Lord. He is alive. I saw the light, I saw the light, the Lord God is the Lord night. Now I'm so happy, I'm so inside. Praise the Lord, I saw the light. Yeah, praise the Lord, I saw the Good morning. Me and Joey were talking about being able to see this morning, and it's not at the right angle. I can't see. I don't think we can either, but our angles are different. And I couldn't see you the next day. This plastic thing makes that light glare. I guess I can see better. Good morning. We are proud that y'all are here. Glad to see everybody out. We got several out with flu. Where the rest of them at, I don't know. But we got several out with flu. We are proud that everybody's here. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get the announcements out of the way. And so I'm going to forget, but I got a couple of them on my mind. Right after church today, there'll be a meeting for everyone who signed up for the arena team. If you signed up, you want to know more about it, they're going to, I don't know exactly what all we're going to do on that today, but we're going to, you'll have to have a team leader, and then you'll have team vote, people who vote on the team. You only have 6 votes on the team, I think what it is. So, and I don't know how you go about picking those, but I'm sure Joey's going to explain that. So if you signed up for the arena team, immediately after church, we're going to have that meeting. So I'll stay with that. I think next Sunday, I don't know which team meeting we're going to have, but there'll be all the teams that you signed up for over the past. Remember we signed up for to be on the team. They're all meeting. We're going to take a Sunday and go over each individual team every Sunday until we get through all of them. So, that's what we do. I don't remember which team is Chuck Wagon team next week. Okay. No, I just got it. You have to cook something and see if you make the team. Is there, as far as I know, that's all we got. There are several thank you cards and letters. The guy that won the top hand award at the Ranch Rodeo in Wyoming sent us a thank you letter for the night that we sent him. We had to send, I think we had one of them, we had to send, get one of them made and send him. But he sent us a thank you letter for that. And there's some other stuff back there on the bulletin board if you want to look at that when you're leaving. There's also bulletins back there that tells you pretty much all that we got going on, and prayer request. Prayer request that if you have a prayer request, you can. There's a little note card on the side of one of the poles back there. If you want to write that down, put it in the bucket, and put an address or a phone number with them, and Miss Suzanne will send them a text, or something to let them know we're praying for them. But just leave us a way to get up with them, and they'll go on in the bulletin for prayer too. Is there anything else? I don't really have anything on this. Well, I guess not.
Next Sunday.
Okay. Yeah, we got a memorial service for Mr. Kirby. next Sunday at 11, right after church. And so, if y'all, all those of you who want to stay right after church, we're gonna have a memorial service for him. Anything else?
Our Father God, we just praise you and we thank you for this day that you give us, Lord. Lord, the day that we have this freedom and this privilege to come here together. Lord, to give you worship, Lord, to give you thanksgiving. Lord, for all that you've done for us and done in us, done through us, Lord, we just praise you and thank you. Lord, we pray for your continued leadership, your continued guidance, and continued wisdom, Lord, as we walk this path today before us. Lord, that we would be faithful in the mission you give us here. Lord, we pray your blessings upon the food that we've eaten this morning, Lord. We pray that you would continue to rain your blessings down upon us as we continue to serve you here in this community. Lord, as we come to this service, Lord, we just pray that our minds and our hearts will be open, Lord, to the message through song, the message through prayer, the message through the word that we come here a little later. Lord, that our hearts will be changed, will be brought closer to you. Lord, that we go out with great boldness to see other people come to know you. Guide our steps in every way that we move in this community. In the name of Jesus, we pray.
There's a family Bible on the table. It's pages worn and hard to read. But the family Bible on the table, it will ever be my key memory.
had to watch John. But, we are going to, do, something a little different this morning. Usually, on our meet and greets, y'all hurry to sit down whenever we get to the end of the song, so we're just gonna let it roll on for a while. We're gonna do a couple of songs while y'all are walking around. I know y'all got a lot to talk about, and y'all will see each other the next Sunday, so we're gonna, y'all stand up. Y'all stand up. If you see somebody here that you haven't seen in a little while, I want y'all to just see, if you see somebody here that's birthday, go tell them happy birthday, all right?
Good morning. If y'all got your Bibles this morning, we're going to be in Psalm 139. Psalm 139. We're going to start there, and we'll be coming back there. We're going to cover a topic today that pretty serious to me, always has been. Psalm 139, we're going to pick up at verse 13 and go down through 16, and later we're going to come back and look at a little bit more in Psalm 139. But Psalm 139, verse 13, says, "For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there were none of them." Let's pray. Father, I thank you this morning for each and every person that has come out today. Father, I thank you for the worship time that we've had. Father, for the praise team. Father, for Chad, for leading them. Father, the talent that you've assembled. Father, I thank you for the food you provided for us this morning. And Father, now as we go in this time of study, Father, I ask that you would open up your word to us. Father, that you would make it real to us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. I want to throw some stuff at you this morning. And it is never my desire to offend you, but sometimes the gospel is offensive. But there's nothing that I'll stand up here and, other than just presenting the gospel, and take more seriously than what I want to talk to you about today. If a person wanted to subscribe to it, as a preacher, you can pretty much be given a topic to preach on just about every Sunday. If you prescribe to the different Baptist things that are out there, different emails and things that come out, they'll pretty much give you a topic that you could preach on just about every Sunday. There's something going on that they think that you should focus on. For the most part, I ignore most of that stuff that comes in and just pray through it to see, what God would have me speak on. There's one Sunday out of the year that is an exception. I haven't done it every single year, but real close, that I try to stick to the topic that they desire for you to talk about all over the country. And that is this Sunday. It is the third Sunday in January, I think, every single year. And it is Sanctity of Human Life Sunday. That is the Sunday that we reflect back now over 45 years of legalized abortion in the United States. 45 years. Today I wanted to give you some statistics. I don't always give you some statistics, but I wanted to start today with statistics. Because I don't think we fully understand what abortion has done to our country. And I don't think we ever truly will understand exactly what it's done to our country. My numbers are a little bit dated. They're not quite 10 years old, but the numbers have done nothing but go up. But each year in this country, there is approximately 1.2 million abortions. 1.2 million. Y'all, that's a big number. That's a lot. That number, thankfully, has gone down. In 1996, the average was 1.36, almost 1.4 million abortions. From 1973 through 2018, there has been documented approximately 60 million abortions in the United States. From 1973 to 2018, 60 million abortions. That is a baby dying, somewhere approximately 3 babies dying every 75 seconds. If you've been here in the past, I actually had Cedra the first time that we ever did it to have a bell. And she would ring that every few seconds, because that was a sign of a baby was being aborted in this country. The highest number of abortions happen in New York State, approximately 120,000 abortions per year in New York. Florida and Texas are not that far behind. The fewest are in North Dakota and South Dakota. Thankfully, we live in the state that has the lowest average number of abortions per live birth. In the state of Mississippi, for every 1,000 babies that is born alive, there are 57 abortions that take place. But still, for every 1,000 babies that are born, 57 are aborted. They'll never get the chance to see the light of day. They'll never get the chance to take their first breath. In New York City, out of every 1,000 babies that is born, there will be 713 babies that die from abortion. For every 1,000 that's born alive, 713 will be aborted. I want you to think about that number for a minute. That is a scary number. From 73 to 79, the number of abortions in this country doubled, and it continued to rise all the way up to the 90s. And it's scary. Of what is considered industrialized nations, the United States has one of the top 4 abortion rates. We also, as a country, are one of the few countries on the planet that legalizes abortion all the way up to the moment the baby is about to be born. You can be 38 weeks, have a fully formed, fully healthy baby, and you can make the choice, if you can find a doctor that will do it, and go and have that baby aborted at 38 weeks, if that's what you choose to do, or 39, or 40, if it hasn't decided to come out yet. We are the only, what's considered industrialized nation that allows that late. Countries that are much more liberal than us understand more about life, it seems like, than we do. There was actually a vote recently that was done in Congress that required for there to be health care given to a baby that was born in a botched abortion, because that does sometimes happen. Amazingly, it barely passed when you get down to the numbers. In the House of Representatives, I'm not promoting Republicans or Democrats, but the numbers are what the numbers are. 9 Democrats voted for that bill, and that was it. And it was to protect babies that were born in botched abortions. They were alive. That's a scary, scary statistic. The United States abortion rate was higher than that of Canada. It was only lower than that of China and Cuba. That's scary numbers. We find that in America today that nearly half of all pregnancies are considered unintended. And 4 out of 10 of unintended pregnancies will end in abortion. 40% of those babies. That's scary. Gets more scary whenever you realize that 36% of the abortions that happen in this country are had by women who've had more than one. They just continue to do the same thing. 57% of the abortions that are had in the United States are had by women between the ages of 20 and 29. That's scary. Only 17% are teenagers. When you get into the numbers of women who already have children and have abortions, those numbers are even more scary. Because you get into people who have babies in their home, but yet choose to have an abortion. 46% of abortions are had by women who have at least one child. 46%. I cannot comprehend that number. I can't comprehend any of these numbers for the most part, but I absolutely cannot comprehend having an abortion when you went through the process of seeing a child develop and grow and turn into the person that it's turning into, and going through a pregnancy and seeing what happens. Lindsay was showing a picture this morning of a sonogram and comparing the sonogram that she recently had with the first sonogram that she had, and it's obvious that what's in there looks like a baby. You can see arms, and you can see legs, and you can see hands, and you can see feet. You can count fingers, and you can count toes. It's hard for me to comprehend that we live in a country that we can abort babies at the rate that we abort babies. Now, when we get into what that really means and how it affects us as people, 60 million babies. For those that don't know, there's approximately 320 million people in the United States at the last census. I think it was 314 million people at the last census. If we simply took the number 60 million and we said, okay, every lady that's had an abortion had two. So you cut that number down to just 30 million women who were affected by abortion. If we took that 30 million women and said they all had two, and we said that each and every one of them was pregnant by the same guy, we're still at 60 million parents. Well, every one of those ladies and every one of those men had a mother and a father. That means there's 120 million grandparents. If you just go with the conservative number of everybody had two, you've got 120 million grandparents who lost a grandchild to abortion. Or in this case, two. If you just add those numbers together, you've got 180 million people who are affected by abortion, just in the mothers, the fathers, and the grandparents. And that's not counting the 60 million people who never got to walk on the face of this planet because they were aborted. 240 million, counting those who were aborted. 180 million is over half of the population. 180 million people affected by abortion. What does abortion mean to this country? I want you to think about a couple of things, and I want you to look at some things and some hot button issues that we get really tore up about that happen in this country. Number one, illegal immigration. Illegal immigration, I'm all for. If he can figure out how to build a wall, let's build a wall. I don't think it's going to fix nothing, but let's build it. They're going to find a way to get in. You know why they're going to find a way to get in? Actually, it's not just money, it's need. We need them. We think, no, we don't. Yes, we do. You go out and you have a manual labor job that is hard, physical, gonna wear blisters, gonna be hard physical labor, and you try to find somebody to fill that job. You can't hardly find them. Why is that? Because there's not enough. There's not enough people. So you need those people to come in because we have decided to abort 60 million productive citizens. If only 2/3 of those people became productive and the other third was never productive, we're still talking about 40 million people. Illegal immigration is as bad as it is because we are aborting the generation that's supposed to go to work. Next hot button topic that oftentimes gets pitched around and thrown out, Social Security's broke. We know it's broke. It's not enough money being paid into the system to keep those that are going. Well, why is that? It is because that Social Security is supposed to work to where the generation that is working today pays for the generation that worked yesterday. And they have to pay into the system. About 50% of the people who are in the United States today actually work and pay into the system. It's actually a little bit below 50%, first time ever. So you're talking about 150 plus million people that are working into the system. If you keep that 2/3 number, we got 40 million people who are not paying into Social Security because we chose to not allow them to pay into the system. Because we chose for them to never be born at all. We chose for 60 million to never be born at all. That's 60 million people who are never going to grow up to pay taxes. That are 60 million people that's never going to grow up to hold a job. That's 60 million people that's never going to hold their mama's hand, that's never going to hug their daddy's neck. That's 60 million people that's never going to make another person. Because see, when we look at the numbers and we start to think about the abortion rate and what it means to our country, it's not just those 60 million people that are not productive citizens in this country anymore. It's their kids that are never going to be productive citizens in this country anymore. I read a story one time, and it was really eye-opening to me. This guy was talking about, was talking to God, and God was talking to him, and he said, God, I don't understand. You can do anything. Why don't you cure cancer? Why don't you cure the diseases that are killing so many people? Why don't you send somebody to take care of all these problems and all of these needs? And God looks at him and says, I did. You aborted them. And you may think, well, how is that? Well, Jeremiah 1:5. And God is speaking to Jeremiah, and he tells him, and God is speaking there and says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were, I knew you. Goes on to tell him, I appointed you a prophet to the nations before you were ever conceived. What we read in Psalm 139, verse 16 says, your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. God has a purpose for each and every person that's here today, and He has a purpose for each and every child. So when does life begin? Life began for Jeremiah before Jeremiah ever was. Life begins at conception. God began instantly to form and to make and to mold that person. 60 million. 60 million that's never going to be productive, 60 million that's never going to make more productive citizens, 60 million that have to be replaced. Some way, some shape, some form. That's how it affects our country. How does it affect our families? Well, it devalues life in general. We look at what's going on in our world today, or in our country today. And if you turn on the news, when the news comes on this afternoon, tonight, whatever, it seems like you've got local channels. It seems like all it is the news all the time. Somebody's going to be shot. Somebody's going to be killed. Somebody's going to be knifed. Something's going to happen, and it's every time you turn on the news. Why? Because life doesn't matter. If the most precious life that we know of, which is a baby, doesn't matter, no life matters. Doesn't happen instantly. It happens over time. We're now 45 years removed from it. We just assume that it's the way it is. But it continues to trickle down. It affects the decisions that we make. It affects all kinds of things. Exodus 21, verses 22 through 25. It says, when men strive together, talking about when two men are in an argument or get in a fight and hit a pregnant woman, so that her children come out, but there is no harm. The one who hit her shall surely be fined, as the woman's husband shall impose on him, and he shall pay as the judge is determined. Verse 23, it says, but if there is harm, then you shall pay life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. See, God's Word is telling you what should happen if something happens to the baby that isn't born. But yet today, it's perfectly okay for us to go to an abortion center and have that life terminated. Whether it's a few weeks along, or whether it's just about ready to be born. I would describe to you the procedure that's called partial birth abortion. But most of you, I don't think, want to hear that this morning. But it's very sad that we live in a country that can be done. Job writes, or in Job, it's chapter 10 and verse 8, and Job's going through pretty tough times when he writes this, but there's some stuff that I want you to see. Verse 8, he says, your hands fashioned me and made me, and now you destroyed me altogether. Remember that you have made me like clay, will return me to the dust. Did you not pour me out like milk and curdle me like cheese? You clothed me with skin and flesh and knit me together with bones and sinews. You have granted me life and steadfast love, and your care has preserved my spirit. It's in Job that we can read and see, and again, Job's going through a very hard time, but he points out as he is talking to God that you fashioned me and you made me. You made me as if you were forming me out of clay. You clothed me in skin and flesh, and you knit me together with bones and sinews and everything that it took to be alive. God did for us. Life is precious. We take it for granted. And we do not live as if it is as precious as it is. Romans 13 and 9 says, for the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet. And any other commandment are summed up in this word. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. We take that verse and we think about our neighbor across the road. We think about the person we see at Walmart. There is no neighbor that's ever any closer than the child that is in the mother's womb. None. Because it is flesh of our flesh and blood of our blood. But yet, we live in a country where it's okay to end that. If we want our country to get turned around and get right, it will not happen with a single election. Just will not. No one politician will come to office and change everything. And it will not turn around. God cannot bless us as long as we live in a country to where we can take the most precious thing that He gives us and offer it on the altar of self. Because when we get down to what abortion is and what really is going on in the 99% of abortions, I get so tired of hearing people say, well, what about in the cases of rape and incest? That doesn't account for 1% of all the abortions that's ever took place. 1%. The other 99% are babies being offered on the altar of self. I'm not ready. I can't afford it. I've already got too many. We can't do this. We're too young. We're too old. It's not just right. The number of special needs babies that are aborted in this country today is staggering. That whenever the test is done and they find out that that baby is down or has some other problem, the abortion rate is astronomical. Because people just decide it's better if it never was. Apparently they've never known a Down baby. They've never dealt with special needs kids and what they bring to the world. The numbers are scary. If we're going to ever turn it around, we have got to make life sacred. If we're ever going to turn that down, we have to understand that it's the same thing, and it's the same message that I preach seemingly over and over and over again. It's got to be to where self is second and God is first. If we can't put God first, if we can't offer our own lives on the altar of God, we're going to offer up our children on the altar of self. It gets down to an issue of whether or not we're willing to succumb. There's something bigger than us and greater than us. In a crowd this size, today, with the numbers that I've already went through, there are people in this office today who have been affected by abortion. There may even be people in this audience today who have taken part in abortion. Now, as we go through these numbers and we go through this issue, there's one thing that I must make sure that I let you know today. God's grace is sufficient for whatever decisions you've made. God's forgiveness is the same for you as it is for me. But it doesn't change the fact that because we were a part of something, it doesn't make it right because we were a part of it. Wrong is wrong, and right is right, regardless of whether we're doing right or whether we're doing wrong. If we choose to do wrong, it doesn't make it right because I did it. If you see me doing something out there and it's wrong, you know what? It's still wrong because I did it. It didn't suddenly become right or okay because I did it. And if it's right, it doesn't suddenly become wrong because I did it. There are a few things, as far as worldly stuff that I'll stand up here and talk about, that I ask for you to pray more about, for you to be more willing to be involved than this issue. What does that mean? Christians today will stand up and tell you of the ills of abortion. And one of the things that we are accused of that seems to be kind of true, we're worried about that baby in the womb, but what about that mother who decides to keep that baby? Where are we then? You see, that baby is going to need help. That mother is going to need help. The church today has decided that the social safety net is the government and not the church. The social safety net for over 2 centuries of this country was the church and the family. Our families are broken up, our churches are on decline, and we all turn to the government. We as Christians are going to have to stand up, and we're going to have to come along beside that teenage girl who made a mistake and help her to understand that she may have made a mistake, but what's in her is not a mistake. That God has a plan and a purpose. He has something for that baby to do. He wouldn't allow it to be there in the first place. We've got to teach our young men that they've got to stand up and be men. If you're going to do the deed, you're responsible for what you leave behind. And you are responsible for it from that moment to the moment it goes out on its own. And way too often, we live in a country, and I'm not going to deny this. I've got 2 boys and I've got a girl. And I'm going to tell you, it's a lot harder to let my girl go out thinking about it than it is my boy. And that's a double standard. And I know that. My daughter would point that out probably right now to me if she wasn't back there in the nursery, because she's married 2 years now. And she'll let me know that I let Avery do stuff she couldn't do. Parents of sons, you need to be raising your boys to be men. And your daughter may can bring something home, and your son may can send something home, but just because he doesn't bring it home doesn't mean it's not your responsibility to take care of it, just the same as if it was in your house. You've got to do what's right because it's right. There's a lot of kids that get in circumstances and situations that aren't the best. And far too often, we as parents jump off the deep end and we jump on our kids and we tell them what they can do and what they can't do and what we think they ought to do instead of just supporting what they feel like God's leading them to do. Sometimes it don't make a lick of sense to us, and sometimes it makes perfect sense, and sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it's easy. But a lot of these issues, and this is one of them, that it starts in the home with how we bring them up. We've got to make them understand how precious life is. We've got to make them understand that there's responsibilities that they have to take on, that you can't just go and do away with your problem. If you're here today and you've ever walked down that road, God's there to walk down that road with you. God's there to bring you through. God's there to take you and use you. Maybe your story might change someone. If you're here today and you've never walked down that road and you've never had to go down that road, quit judging the people who have and be their partner. Be there to support that person who's had to go through something that you can't understand. You don't know the reason behind their decision. You don't know what was going on in their life. It doesn't make the decision that they made right, but you have no right to judge them for doing what they did. You are to come along beside them and help them and disciple them. You don't know what you'd do if you were wearing the same shoes that they were wearing. Do not take your blessed privilege and use it as a billy pulpit to beat over somebody else's mistakes. And far too often we do that. But we have to come together as a church, as a body of believers, as individuals, and turn it around. If we're going to see our country turn, we have to make life precious again. And that means from the baby in the womb to the elderly, to all those in between. You know, God's got something for every single one of us to do. Let's go back to Psalm 139. Verse 1 and following. It says, O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down, when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before words on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain it. Where shall I go from your spirit, or where shall I flee from your presence? I shall ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light about me be night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is bright as day, for darkness is as light with you. For you formed me, my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there were none of them. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. If I would count them, they are more than the sand. I awake, and I am still with you. Oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God, O men of blood, depart from me. They speak against you with malicious intent. Your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? Do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with complete hatred. I count them my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. God is always there. God always knows, and God always can reach to us. Are we willing today to say, God, search me, know my heart, try me, know my thoughts, and if there is any grievous thing in me, take it out. Take it away, remove it from me. Are we willing to allow God to take and remove from us and allow Him to show us the way everlasting? Because that's the only thing that's going to fix this. It's the only thing that's going to turn it around. If you're here today and you know Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, act like it, live like it, and let people know about it. If you're here today and you don't know Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, there is no better day than today. His gracious grace is sufficient yesterday, today, and it'll be sufficient tomorrow as well.
Amen.
Let's pray. Father, I thank you for each and every person that's here. And Father, I ask your forgiveness for the number of times that I've been silent when I could have helped, the number of opportunities that I've squandered. And Father, I ask your forgiveness for our country. Father, as we have corporately sinned against you, as we have taken our children, and Father, we have offered them on the altar of self, offering them up, Father, so that we could have a life unchanged, so often not realizing that life can never be the same. Father, I ask you to be with those that are here today who walk down that road. Father, I ask you to pour your grace out upon them, Father, that you give them peace and comfort, knowing that your forgiveness, your grace is sufficient for them. Father, for those that are here who've never had to walk down that road and, Father, have found it so easy to say what they would do. Father, help them to have the understanding of what they need to do. Father, that they would be willing to help those who are walking that road. Father, those who have obstacles over to come that they can never dream of. Father, we ask that you guide and that you direct. Father, we ask that you bring our country back to you, to where you are the foundation, again, that is recognized. Father, we thank you for all you do and all you give. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.